Hi, today I'm going to show you how to use this tracking sheet, which will allow you to keep information on all of your students for their Scantron, previous year OAA scores, Study Island benchmarks, as well as the incentive program that we are using for the 2012-2013 school year. So the first column you're going to need to start out with, or the first tab, is the Names tab. So the first student we're going to use is named Adam. I'm going to use columns B through H only. I leave column A alone. His last name is Academic. His homeroom teacher, I'll just use myself, Bauer. He's a 5th grader. His birth date is 12/16/2001, and his ID number is 123456. And as you can see, I get a count there, which lets me know how many students I've entered. So if I know how many students I had in my class, let's say I had 61, once it gets to 61, I know I've entered all of my students. Now let's enter Susie, student. And as you can see, as I'm doing this, it populates column A. Homeroom teacher, grade, again, birth date, and a student ID number. And I continue doing this all the way down until I have my entire class listed. Then this is going to be information that's utilized throughout the rest of the tabs. As you can see down at the bottom, we have the incentives, Scantron scores, previous year OAA, benchmark math, and benchmark reading. So let's look at incentives. As you can see, it's already been populated with our students' names. Completed fall and completed Scantron, it says no. That's because it is based on information that we are going to enter on the tabs we have upcoming. We're going to revisit this page again so you can see how that changes. Completed first semester benchmarks and completed second semester benchmarks. That will again change once we get data entered. Now, for columns H through L, what I'm going to do is put down the month that I send out a gift card to a student. Let's say for Adam Academic, in Class Connects, he was there all the time. I think he deserves it. So I'm going to put down OCT because I sent him a card in October. That will let me know he received a card. And when did I send it? I sent it in October. That's the way I'm going to do it for my record keeping. Now let's look at Scantron scores. And as you can see, there already are dates that have been populated here, but then you're going to enter dates as well. So let's say for the math, Adam, he did a 2900, and as you can see, that gives him an advanced score. I didn't need to do anything for the placement because that is already determined, as you can see up above in the formula bar, based on that information. That is accurate for each grade level. It's going to be different for each grade level, but it is accurate for every grade level. So the 3rd grade sheet and the 4th grade sheet are accurate for them, as well as this 5th grade sheet. Now for the reading, did it 2400, and that's an at-risk. Now the reason I put the dates in there is I like to track that to see if they're doing it early or they're doing it later, or they possibly were ones that I had to chase. When I can see those dates, it gives me an idea too. What's going to come up in the spring? Is this a family I'm not going to have to worry about, or is it possibly ones that I might have to chase? So I'm going to need to be aware of it and be on them probably right away. Now you'll see that the year difference has already been filled in because it determines this based on the spring score. Basically, right now is saying there's a 0 there. So the difference is 2900. Made expected gains, well, there's a certain number it's looking for. If it doesn't find it, leaves it a blank. If it does, it's going to say yes and turn it blue. Now 5% of the fall score, so it takes your fall score, multiplies it by 0.05, and returns that number. If that is part of the expected gain there and made it, then that next column is going to be saying yes. Again, all of this is based on spring data that we do not have entered yet. Now if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, at the bottom you have the total number of students that you have. Now then you also have who is tested and who is left to test. All right, because I didn't enter any information for Susie student there, it tells me I still have one student that is left to be testing. All right, and as you can see all the way for spring, there are 2 students because they haven't taken anything yet. Also lets me know how many students I have at risk and what percentage of my class is at risk, on target for OT, and then AD is advanced. It does this across the board for fall and for spring. This is information that lets me know which students I need to target at the low end of the spectrum and which ones are at the high end of the spectrum that I might need to enrich. Now, previous year OAA scores go in the next column. Again, all of this data is filled in for you regarding name, grade, birth date, ID. Now, the grade that's listed is the current grade. However, the OAA scores that you're going to be entering are their previous year scores. So what we do too is there are going to be times that we do not have an OAA score for them. If a student's alternative assessment, if you look above names, you can use AA. If they're homeschooled, you can use HS. If they're private schooled, PS. If they were out of state, just moved here, OS. Or if they did not test, DNT. You enter that under the OAA math or the OAA reading, and then under the MPL or the RPL, you will delete whatever shows up there because it's basing it on what you put in there and it does not correlate with the formula. So you don't have to worry about that. All right, so once you enter that data, it will figure it out, but it's going to be inaccurate. So let's say Adam Academic did a 400 and that's proficient. So the previous year he was proficient in 4th grade. Now for reading, he did a 385. Well, that's basic. So that kind of gives me a clue I might need to keep an eye on him. All right, so we go to Susie's student, and let's say in her math, she did a 365. That shows us then that she's limited, but she is a really good reader here. Again, these are just for demonstration purposes. And 378, and then that changes it to advanced. So as you can see, once you enter in those scores, you are going to get the information that was sent to basically from ODE to the parents there if you have the OAA scores. So next we're going to look at the benchmark information. Once again, it fills in your student's name. This is last name and then first name. This is based on how it shows up in Study Island when you pull that report. The homeroom teacher. The minutes, how many minutes did it take them to complete it? Scaled, that's the score, basically like an OAA score. And then the grade is the proficiency level, just like what we looked at on the previous year OAA. So Adam Academic, let's say he took 35.6 minutes for, and we're again in the math, and he scored a 378. Well, that tells me that he is still limited, L. Now, if you look over to the side, there's a score differential there, score difference. It compares between the different benchmarks, between 1 and 2 and then 2 and 3. Also gives you a time difference. This is very interesting to note because then you can see, did they rush through it? Did they not really care? Or did they really take their time? Or did they maybe take a little bit too much time? All right, so it's always interesting to look at that and compare that from test to test. So, and Susie, she took, let's say she took 15 minutes, all right, but she scored a 415. She is proficient. And once again, it fills in the rest of that data. Now, that red data will change based on what goes into the second benchmark, and then the third benchmark will change for the last 2 columns there. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it again totals up needs completed and how many have completed and how many students you have in your class there. All right, so that's just information for you, and it just keeps that all in track there so that you know that you have entered that information there. And again, let's look at the reading here. All right, so very similar to the math. Adam took 65.8 minutes, whoops, 0.3, and let's say he scored a 456 this time. Well, that says he's accelerated. Now Susie, she took 120.9. She really took a long time here. And she scored a 398, which means she was basic. Again, that fills it in based on what you enter. And again, you get those numbers that won't change until you enter your next score. and once again, needs completed, completed, and your total number of students. Now, as I said, we're going to go back to the incentive page because it is tied into all of these other pages, and then you can see how the data is filled in. All right, completed fall Scantron. Since we entered scores in there for them, or for Adam, it changed that no to a yes. Now, for completed the fall or the first semester benchmarks, it's going to be a no because the second benchmark that they take is included in the first semester. So until they take that January test, that will not change. But as you can see, the fall Scantron did change because we entered a score in for Adam Academic. So as you can see, by entering all these little bits of information and getting that first page set up, then you are ready to keep track of all of your students' data all on one Excel spreadsheet. This is very handy to look at to see how your students are doing academically, which ones you might need to target, whether they are working ahead of the academic range or if they're working below the academic range. So again, I hope you find this useful, not confusing, but if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. I will be happy to explain anything that I can to make this a useful tool for all of you. I thank you for watching, and again, I hope you find this tool useful in helping you get a better understanding of where your students are academically. Thanks again.